Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I'm Lupine Fiasco, this is Daily FaB Gameplay, and today we're getting our first look at Kassai of the Golden Sand. For anyone who is new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review replays of games that I played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my games. I will talk through turn cycles as if I were taking them now, and compare the line I would take to the line I did take at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future, to take down paper events like ProQuests or Road to Nationals, and most importantly, walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. If you would like to check out this list I'm playing here or try it for yourself on Talishar, a FaB deck link is in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. A YouTube subscription is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. If you'd like to go above and beyond, the best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and a Patreon link is also in the video description. A Patreon subscription will get you access to the DFG Discord. At higher tiers, your name will be featured in every DFG video, you'll get bonus content every week, and there are even more benefits to come. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for those who can afford to patronize me, I truly appreciate it. Let's talk about our sideboard and some initial thoughts on Kassai. I want to apologize for a couple things right here at the start. The first is that in lieu of friends of mine who play and care about Kassai, of which there are very few, I've returned to Talishar's open format queue. Here's your disclaimer about this being week -2 of the heavy hitters meta and that I can't vouch for the play or deck building skill of my opponents. Second, I apologize that this game is incomplete. Due to reasons you'll understand shortly, it ended in a concession. And while I would ordinarily spare you all the discomfort of an anticlimax, I felt that this game does a satisfactory job of showing off what I think Kassai is trying to do and how we can approach it. So, with all that said, Kassai of the Golden Sand joins KO, armed and dangerous, as an adult hero ported from Blitz, with some significant changes made to the core ability. As someone who doesn't play Blitz, I had no opinion or expectations for Kassai outside of that she will use 2 swords, and very likely cares about copper. And this is largely the case, but she also cares about gold. Having played a couple games against the hero, I would relate her most closely to Hatchet's Dorinthia. And if you're newer to the game, that concept might not be familiar to you. Hatchet's is definitely the least popular approach to Dory, falling behind Dawnblade and Decimator Great Axe. But what you need to know about this double one-hander style of play is that its damage is very often both backloaded and face-up. The most common ways for Kassai to give her weapons go again all give additional power to the second attack, not the first, and none of it will take you by surprise. Outside of those, her stronger non-attack actions will also tell you exactly how much damage Kassai's weapon will deal if it hits, and what on-hits will trigger if any. Kassai does have a few reactions in her deck, but they're underwhelming compared to her face-up damage. All of this is building towards Kassai's big payoff. With enough copper, blood on her hands will enable Kassai to deal a large amount of damage with her sabers, which is also augmented by any additional reactions or block with attack actions from us. Finally, it's worth mentioning that Kassai's only attack action should be Nourishing Emptiness. This is a 2-card 6 with evasion that draws an extra card for Kassai, and her ability to banish past Nourishing Emptinesses from her discard will ensure that the effect is always active. So how does this inform our play style in the matchup? It tells me that until she can show me otherwise, I don't want to do any blocking against Kassai. This is what I found to be correct against Hatchet's Dory as well. Kassai's damage doesn't actually scale, so you don't gain any advantage by blocking before Kassai is threatening lethal. She plays her overcosted head jabs and generates her currency, but you know what's even cooler than that? Killing a person. We're taking our Spring Tunic to do just that, and loading up with Pouncing Links to pull off big turns with Spreading Flames and Art of War. I can see an argument for including that Olligot to prevent damage from naked sabers, but I'm not sure what I would cut for it. Tenacity is my go-to in other tag matchups, but we absolutely don't want to cut that against a warrior who will use armor to cover our breakpoints. At least in early days, we're going to race Kassai to see if we even need to worry about preventing copper production to stop these big blood on her hands turns, or if we can just do 5 things. Let's check it out now. We win the die roll, and we are going to put Kassai first. What I already like about the hero is that she can enable power on future turns by playing cards from her hand that she isn't necessarily using for value. So she can play a blood on her hands, she can play a slice and dice, and then not attack. She doesn't give us the opportunity to filter our hand, but she's also building up her discard so she can activate her hero ability. For our part, we are not looking to play this Art of War this turn. I would like to tuck it into Arsenal to hopefully save it for when our Spring Tunic is online. At the very least, I want to play it with a 5-card hand. And this hand is pretty good for dealing damage. This is a 3-card 11 with an Arsenal. It's entirely possible that our opponent will be baited into blocking the Snatch. Of course, we don't care if it hits. We aren't intending to break our Snapdragon Scalers. But it may pressure her to block with armor or maybe a card from hand. Even getting a sink below here is fine. We know that Kassai has 1 fewer card to work with on her turn. Taking a brief look at Kassai's equipment, Crown of Dominion is a great choice. It means that Kassai will be more aggressive when she draws into cash-in. She can put a bigger turn together. I like the use of the new chest piece. With Kassai's ability discounting her swords, she doesn't need to use something like Courage of Bladehold. She can dump extra resources into making vigor tokens, effectively banking resources for future turns. Hot Streak, as opposed to second Centauri Saber, might be a concession to the ninja class with all of our attack actions, though again, we aren't intending to block anything, so Hot Streak is mostly just worse Centauri Saber. And finally, if you've never played against Valiant Dynamo, it is a house. If Kassai is frequently attacking with both swords in a turn, Dynamo is refreshing itself every turn, it's blocking for 1 every turn, and if a game goes long enough, Valiant Dynamo is worth 5 or 6 points of damage over the course of that game. Dynamo is a big reason that I am already disincentivized from running Mask of Momentum against Warrior, and especially when I think that Warrior will be using 2 one-handed swords. Nourishing Emptiness here is a great play. We cannot effectively block it. We don't have our Flamescale Furnace, by design, of course. But even if we had Furnace, we would have to give it a Shuko and a card from hand to stop the Nourishing Emptiness hit, and that just isn't worth it. So we take our damage and come back to our turn. I'm not intending to play Art of War here. The reason is we don't have our Tunic available, so we are playing our Art of War. We're banishing a very playable 0 for 2 from hand, and we don't have the resource available to attack with our Ember Blade. So it's not likely, but it's possible that we draw into a worse hand than what we have now, and the hand we have now is really good. Brand with Cinderclaw Yellow is getting the Spreading Flames buff, Searing Emberblade will get the buff, Phoenix Flame will get the buff, and we are convincing our Kassai to block. I wouldn't think about breaking Pouncing Links here. Kassai is still too high on life, and we still have our Art of War for next turn. So I'm not using Pouncing Links. We could cash it in here for Lava Burst for 6, but I like saving it. The other reason I want to save the Art of War is that we will have Tunic next turn, so we can put a large turn together following up the large turn we just had. We know that it is unlikely that Kassai is running any sort of arsenal destruction. Commanding Performance could threaten our arsenal if we ever intended to block, which we don't. Letting Kassai get the 4 copper here does feel pretty bad, but there's also no way that we can stop her from doing it. We would have to commit our entire hand to blocks, which already doesn't sound good, but especially doesn't sound good when we have an Art of War sitting in Arsenal. So we will just take this damage. We will let Kassai do her thing. She is going to end up throwing 12 more damage this turn, which is really cool. It's great. It's good damage. She gets the Nourishing Emptiness effect again, having banished the first Nourishing Emptiness. I'm looking for a way to express how cool I think that is, but sadly, a failing of Talent Shard that I cannot say great. For our turn, the lack of a blue makes this a little clunky, but because we have Tunic, we are going to be able to pay for our Art of War, then banish our Mounting Anger, and hope to draw into something a little better than what we have here. We will use it as an attack reaction to push a little extra damage with our Ronin Renegade, and we draw really well. Warmonger's Diplomacy here is going to pay for Emberblade. We don't need the floating resource to pick up and play our Phoenix Flame, but we are still pushing some damage. What's really cool about this hand is Lava Burst and Tenacity, having the 2 finishers and having a second finisher in Tenacity that really benefits from our opponent overblocking the first finisher, Lava Burst. Using Pouncing Links here to find a Tenacity or Assault the Wound is appealing, being able to tuck a finisher into our arsenal, but what's even cooler is having our 2 finishers as hidden information. Kassai doesn't know that we have Tenacity, and here I'm just checking how many cards Kassai has already blocked with. What's great about this is we know that Kassai is running Sink Below because she's already played one. So we use our Snapdragon Scalers here. Kassai thinks that she's getting us. This Lava Burst isn't hitting, we can't break Mask of the Pouncing Links. But what Kassai doesn't know is we already have the Tenacity. This isn't the same thing as Katsu having his combo naturally, but it does give me that feeling of, look how much you committed to blocks, and look how little it mattered. We draw into another Art of War, which is just really great. We draw into an extra blue to pay for it. We draw into a Phoenix Flame that we are very happy to banish to the Art of War. Kassai going nuts with blood on her hands. Thankfully, she does not have the other 2 coppers to get the full effect of blood on her hands, but she's going pretty wild here. Dealing a significant amount of damage, generating her vigor, generating her gold, but we don't care, we're not blocking any of this. We have a nice turn set up. Worth noting that Kassai still has all of her armor. She is sitting at an effective 19 health with 4 cards in hand, so I would not say that we are ahead in this game, but this Art of War is going to put us in a pretty nice position. Brand with Cinderclaw here, just an easy 1 power attack, is going to let us Art of War over the top of this Valiant Dynamo. We'll see what we draw into. Mounting Anger and Ronin Renegade they're good cards, right? They're both reds, they're both powerful. Mounting Anger has a powerful on-hit, Ronin Renegade is just 0-4 under Art of War. It's unfortunate that we can't also attack with our Emberblade with the resources we have available. But our question here with this brand hitting is, do we want to use our Pouncing Links? I think we do, because we need to put some damage together to threaten Kassai. But Kassai still has so much armor available to block that we might not be able to strip cards from her hand unless we had something that benefits from our opponent committing to blocking with armor. If you've been watching me for a while, you know that I am a big fan of breaking Pouncing Links later on in a chain. I want to see, am I going to get more value out of my Lava Burst or Salt the Wound? What I have not tried much before, and what I want to try more of is breaking it early to grab tenacity against heroes who block. The reason this game is so short is that our opponent does not want to deal with this combat math, which is a shame. I would have loved to see how this all wraps up and how our opponent deals with this. But we can, on our own, extrapolate what this looks like if Kassai does or doesn't play around tenacity. Let's say that she does no blocking to make tenacity as weak as possible. Mounting Anger hits for 5. It banishes Ronin Renegade, which also now hits for 5. We pick up our Phoenix Flame and pitch it to Emberblade, which attacks for 3. Tenacity now attacks for 2, plus 1 from Valiant Dynamo blocking, plus 1 from Art of War and 1 from Shuko, so that is also 5. We're attacking for a total of 18. Kassai needs to cover 8 of that to not be dead, but she can't just put 8 in front of tenacity because tenacity doesn't attack for 8. So let's now say she puts a 3 block in front of Emberblade. She prevents that 3 points of damage, and she's sitting at 1 before the tenacity attacks. But now, because there's another blocking card on the chain, tenacity doesn't attack for 5, it attacks for 6. It has that extra point of power, so Kassai can no longer cover it with armor and a card from hand. She has to use 2 cards from hand. She's still at 1. She has 1 card left in hand and a Vigor, so she could attack with Centauri Saber and arsenal her last card. We go to 10, and now Kassai is sitting at an effective 3 points of health, and we have 4 cards to try to kill her. Let's say Kassai goes in the other direction and blocks out this turn entirely. She puts a card from hand and a piece of armor in front of Mounting Anger. She puts a card from hand and a piece of armor in front of Ronin Renegade. She puts a card from hand in front of Phoenix Flame. So she, at this point, is still sitting at 11, but she's blocking with 6 cards, which means that tenacity is attacking for 9. Kassai can use her last card from hand to block the tenacity for 3. She takes 6 and goes to 5. We draw up to 4 cards. Kassai gets to attack with 1 saber on her turn, and now we get to throw another 4-card hand at her to try and get the win. Dealing with this sort of play with tenacity found on the first hit is going to be a nightmare for people to play against. I already see people misplaying against tenacity even when everything is face up. I attack with Salt the Wound for 7, they block for 6 with 2 cards from hand, and now tenacity has an extra 2 power. People already need to retrain their brains to block around tenacity, and this sort of play of having tenacity right at the start, backed up by a very strong series of plays, Mounting Anger, Ronin Renegade, Searing Emberblade, is really going to break people's brains. So it's unfortunate that Kassai didn't want to play this one out, because I would have loved to see how she put this together. So I do apologize again for this abrupt ending. Doing the math on this was a lot of fun for me just now. It would have been fun to do this as the opponent to see how they decide to deal with this. We may have rolled a bit high in this game with back-to-back-to-back power turns, which won't happen every game, but I do think that this was at least a good example of what Kassai is trying to do. I would have liked to show off enemy stats at the end of this recording. I forgot to do so, but I do remember that Kassai was getting 16.5 points of value per turn cycle compared to our 13.75. So even in what was very likely a winning game, she's getting more value per turn than we are, which is why I feel great about bringing the complete aggro package with Tunic and without defense reactions. Something I am noticing about these heavy hitters heroes between Kassai, Olympia, and Victor are that we really need to go over the top to put wins together. These heavy hitters heroes generate a lot of value through Clash, through discarding to generate might, through Valiant Dynamo, through resource generation by hitting with weapons, and for FaB, what we really need to do is enable our Spreading Flames Art of War turns and also take advantage of just how good of a card Tenacity is. I knew it would be good. I called it early once it was spoiled, but I think anyone could have guessed how strong Tenacity was going to be, or rather that Tenacity would be strong. What none of us could guess, and what I and my playgroup are learning now, is that it's so much better than that. I thought Tenacity is just Lava Burst numbers 4 through 6, 4 through 5. But I'm often getting Tenacity up to 7 points minimum and 10 points at a maximum, and Lava Burst is never attacking for 10. Tenacity is a really, really good card, and it's exactly what we need to combat all of these strong warriors and guardians. I do hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. I hope that the next Kassai video I bring you will at least be a complete game, if not against a more tuned list. But if you did find this video helpful, be sure to head jab that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. It's free, it helps me a lot, but whether you do or you don't, I will see you back here tomorrow for more daily FaB gameplay. Until then, take care.